Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. Yesterday, I was scrolling through X and I saw this, a video of somebody in Congress showing a picture of the Salt Lake Temple. So I stopped and listened to this. This is by Representative Mike Kennedy, MD. In 2027, from April through October, the Salt Lake Temple will be open for public tours for the first time in generations. This week on the House floor, I invited my congressional colleagues and their families to come to Salt Lake City and tour the temple and experience a place that holds deep meaning for so many Utahns and reflects the history, faith, and craftsmanship of our state. Now, I can't remember a time where there's been some visual representation of our church displayed in Congress, or I'm sure that the church has come up from time to time, but I don't think I've seen anything like this. I don't know if this is too far out of the ordinary. I've never heard of a representative or a senator like inviting their colleagues to some kind of event in their state. I mean, obviously he did this, and maybe it's something that they do. I didn't know that they do this, but he did. And I have some thoughts about this. So I just wanted to verify. So this is Michael Stephen Kennedy, American politician, attorney, and physician, serving as the U.S. representative from Utah's 3rd Congressional District since 2025. So he's new to the House of Representatives. He's a member of the church. He went to BYU, served a mission. This is him right here. Deseret News did a story about this. There wasn't really much more about it. And this whole thing kind of made me think about a few years ago when we had the open house for the Washington, D.C. temple. That was a major event in my mind, the open house itself, because it gave a lot of people in government and dignitaries from other countries that are in and around Washington, D.C., the chance to, get to know our church and see what it's like inside of a temple. And I think that's a big deal. You had ambassadors there and members of government and so forth. This was a temple that President Nelson rededicated himself. He tended to dedicate these really significant temples like the Washington, D.C. temple, the Rome, Italy temple, and stuff like that. So I don't know, this official invitation to members of the House to come to Salt Lake City to see the Salt Lake Temple, I feel like it's on the same level as that. And I think it's highly significant. I decided to transcribe what he said. It was just a very short, 1-minute message. This is what he actually said. Mr. Speaker and honored members, in 2027, beginning in April and ending in October, the Salt Lake Temple, which is to my left, will be open for public tours. All are welcome, with 3 to 5 million visitors expected during this historic event that will be important to Utahns and especially to those who will again worship and serve there. I invite all my colleagues in the House and their families to visit Salt Lake City and tour the temple with me. Though it was not the first, it has become the most recognizable temple in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Many visitors associate the temple with Utah's capital city. The temple was built of native granite and took 40 years to complete, with a goal to construct it so it would last throughout time. Come experience the spirit of this event with me, and with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back. So, just very short and sweet and to the point, unlike my videos. And I hope it works. I hope that they become part of the 3 to 5 million people that go through the Salt Lake Temple, and hopefully other dignitaries, and I'm sure that that'll be the case. This is going to be a huge event. This part right here, where he says it was constructed to last throughout time, I wanted to share some quotes on that. Hopefully you're already familiar with this, but we're on my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z. This is currently row 522 for Salt Lake Temple. I think everybody that's a member of the church should be familiar with this quote. This is from Brigham Young, Journal of Discourses, Volume 11, page 371 to 372. We have commenced a temple that I want to see stand 1,000 years when the earth rests. We do not calculate that building will fall down. I was so distrustful about the foundation. There were so many things about it I did not like that we took it up and had to commence it again. We have got started now, and I think it is safe. When the temple is built, I want it to stand through the millennium, in connection with many others that will yet be built, that the elders may go in and labor for their dead who have died without the gospel, back to the days of Adam. So this is a significant quote. I actually have a bunch of other quotes here. This is row 606 for temples, millennium. And we have other quotes, confirming that temples are meant to last through the millennium. Sometimes the question arises, is the destruction going to be so great at the second coming that temples are going to be destroyed? Some people have the idea that there's going to be a gigantic cube that's going to be the New Jerusalem. When they read Revelation chapter 21, they take it literally and think that there's going to be a gigantic cube that comes and crushes everything within its footprint in North America, centered on the United States. And I don't think that that's the case, because these temples are being built to last for the millennium. When you look in the Institute Student Manual, it talks about the fact that those numbers are symbolic. But you can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video in case you want to check out these quotes. But I do want to read a few more things about the Salt Lake Temple, since that's what we're thinking about in this video. I want to remind us about this. This is from Newsroom, May 18th, 2020. Angel Moroni statue and capstone removed from Salt Lake Temple. The removal of the statue and capstone had long been planned as part of the temple's years-long structural and seismic renovation. The timeline for this portion of the project was sped up following a 5.7 magnitude earthquake in March 2020 that shook the trumpet out of Moroni's hand and caused other minor damage. So it's just interesting that at least a portion of the renovation, even if it's just a small portion of it, was sped up because of an earthquake. And the earthquake caused the trumpet to fall out of Moroni's hand, which I didn't know was even possible. 2 days later, missionaries were called home, and a couple days after that, all temples worldwide were shut down because of the pandemic. A lot of people recognized that this was some kind of sign and significant event. But on top of all that is the fact that part of the renovation was sped up. And I feel like if you have eyes to see, ears to hear, the obvious message is the Lord is hastening his work. It's supposed to be going quicker. So there's that. Originally, now with that being said, originally everything was supposed to be completed by 2024. Could you imagine if it had been rededicated last year? But it got pushed back because they did find problems with the foundation, despite Brigham Young's best efforts. I know that they did the best that they could. But there were issues that needed to be fixed. And they've been doing all this seismic upgrading. And I tend to think, and I know a lot of you do too, that this has something to do with the timing of the second coming. I don't know how. I don't know if it has to be done before the official second coming or if it has to be done before any of the 4 appearances, or I just feel like it has something to do with the timing. Let me fix this. I still have all these things I got to fix on my spreadsheet. But by the way, whenever you use my spreadsheet, just know that there can be errors. So you really should, if you're going to use anything, just double check everything. If you're going to use something in a talk, just double check. Don't just assume that I got everything right. There could be typos and stuff like that. Okay. Now we got this. This is Church News, May 21st, 2024. It's a Church News podcast, episode 189, Salt Lake Temple Renovation Update with Brent Roberts and Andy Kirby. This is Brent Roberts speaking, Managing Director, Special Projects Department. I think our mission has stayed the same, and our mission as given to us by President Russell M. Nelson was to emphasize and highlight the life and ministry and the mission of Jesus Christ all throughout Temple Square, including the temple. And the renovation of the temple, of course, was to make it a greater patron experience, as well as provide mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades, and most importantly, a seismic upgrade so that it would stand through the millennium. Okay, so just like President Brigham Young said, we're still holding to that the Salt Lake Temple is supposed to stand through the millennium. Okay, so that it would stand through the millennium is what the president has talked about many times. So I think we stay true to that mission. Okay, we have another one. This is from the same podcast. This is Brent Roberts. I'm just going to read. So they're talking about the monument of Isaiah 2, verse 2. I have a video of that. A couple months ago, I was in Utah, and I took a bunch of videos for my other channel called Explore Church Sites. Please make sure to subscribe to that. And if you haven't been to Temple Square, or it's been a while, you don't live in Utah, watch this video. I do a full tour of the church office building Plaza and the Main Street Plaza. It was really fun. But this right here is the monument that he's talking about. Let's see. I'm going to read the parts in red. Well, the president, President Nelson, took a portion of that scripture, all nations shall flow unto it, and gave us part of our mandate. He said, if all nations are going to be here, then technologically we need to take care of all nations. And so the audiovisual portion that will be in the temple itself for the patrons will be in so many languages, and for people for the first time throughout the world can come to the Salt Lake Temple, attend the Salt Lake Temple, and be able to hear it in their own language. And he says, and we all think that that's partial fulfillment of what Isaiah talked about, the mountain of the Lord and his special temple. Later on, the interviewer, Sarah Jane Weaver, says, yeah, and there's also an area of the plaza that shows flags around the world. Tell us about those. Brent Roberts. I was just at a meeting a few weeks ago with President Nelson, and he looked out his window and looked into that, and he said, it is exactly what we as a first presidency envisioned it would be. And when he says envisioned, I think that he actually means vision. I'll show you why in just a minute. It is beautiful. And he said, what you have done with the flowers around, and they appeared to be pink flowers at the time, just enhances the square. And it is not a stagnant area with the flags moving and the wind bustling through the trees. It is exactly what we envisioned, and it shows the world that all children of God are welcome. So again, right after this, you might want to check out this video. Here's the flags that he's talking about. If you didn't know, it doesn't have, at any given time, it doesn't have all the flags of the world, because that would be a lot of flagpoles. But they rotate it throughout the year. And I think last I checked, they rotate them every quarter of the year. The United States flag is always flying, but all the rest of them, they rotate them. Okay. And then we got Andy Kirby, Special Projects Department, Director of Historic Temple Renovations. This is episode 189 for Church News. I'm just going to read this part. Andy Kirby. Well, we have a very specific date that we're working to, and I've committed to Brent and other church leaders to meet that date. But until they announce it, I say 2026. So I'm really curious about the date that he's referring to. Obviously, it got pushed back to 2027. This episode came out in 2024. But I wonder if the date of the year, like say that they wanted it done by And I don't know if this is referring to just having it done for the open house. So maybe they wanted, for some reason, specifically for the open house to be in April and go to October. Those are two really significant months. April is typically the month in which Passover falls. It's when we have General Conference. And then October, you have the Jewish feast days that typically fall in, September, October, as well as October General Conference. So it may just have to do with that. They wanted to go from General Conference to General Conference, or I don't know, but it's just really interesting that they had a specific date in mind. And then I think this is the last one, and then we're going to move on. This is Josh Fenn, Vice President / Project Executive, Jacobson Construction Company. Church Newsroom, YouTube channel. The name of the video is Temple Square Plazas Completed and Transformed. And he says, President Nelson highlighted that he saw in vision the nations of the world coming to this area. There are other things that I have that President Nelson said that he saw in vision. We've covered it over the course of this channel, but he really is a prophet, and he was a prophet. And now President Oaks, he is a prophet. They do have visions. They do receive revelation in different ways, up to and including visions and visitations. Okay. And then lastly, this story, again, we're talking about this happening in the U.S. House of Representatives, something I've never seen before, and I think is significant. It also made me think of Elder Stevenson's talk from the October 2024 General Conference, Days Never to Be Forgotten. Let's review this one more time. So he says, may I be so bold as to suggest that this year, 2024, we have commenced a decade that may prove to be as momentous as any that has followed. That unparalleled founding decade almost 2 centuries ago. So he's comparing this decade to 1820 to 1830. Our decade. Let me explain. Between now, 2024, and 2034, we will experience seminal events that will result in extraordinary opportunities to serve, to unite with members and friends, and to introduce the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to more people than ever before. And then he lists off these really big events. He pointed to President Nelson's 100th birthday and how there were tens of millions of people that watched that around the world, not just within our church, but outside of the church. And so there's potentially people that were introduced to the church for the first time by coming across that story. It was published in places like Newsweek, New York Times, and of course on social media. He pointed out the refurbished Plaza that we were just talking about. That's here between the church office building, the administration building, Joseph Smith Memorial Building, and so forth. How this is actually a pretty big deal. And then he points to the Salt Lake Temple. He says, contemplate the unprecedented number of temple open houses and dedications that are planned to take place over the next decade. Even the potential for 164 temples and counting. Imagine tens of millions of you and your friends walking through a house of the Lord. The symbolic center of these events will be the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple and the activities associated with it. These certainly will be days never to be forgotten. Again, I can't say this for sure, but I would not be surprised if the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple is something similar to what they did for the Palmyra, New York Temple dedication and Nauvoo Temple dedication, where they broadcast it. And you would go to your, I'm sure it was like this across the church. You'd go to the stake center. You'd have to have an active, valid temple recommend. And they closed the doors. You went into the chapel, and it served as a type of temple space as you participated in the dedication of those temples. Because this is so big, it's on that same level. That's why I think that may happen. So I would encourage you not to miss that. Of course, always make sure that you have a valid temple recommend and remain temple worthy. You don't want to miss these kind of events. Whether it's the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple, whether it's things having to do with Adam Yamin, whether it's Christ's appearance to the New Jerusalem, whatever that looks like, whether it's being caught up with the resurrected saints, maybe you won't get caught up and participate in that event unless you're temple worthy. So at least with this one, we can plan on this. So make sure that you're ready by that time. You're not going to want to miss it. I think that it, not only are you going to have all these people going through the temple, which is what we're mostly focusing on in this video. In the case of the Salt Lake Temple, I guess the projection is 3 to 5 million, including dignitaries and hopefully members of Congress. But I think that the rededication itself is going to be a highly, highly spiritual experience. They all are for any temple dedication or rededication, but for this, with all the like signs and unusual things that we've seen with the Salt Lake Temple, this one is probably going to be like a major milestone. So I would plan on it. If I were you, and I do plan this for myself, I would plan to make a trip to go to the open house if you can. It's exciting. And then, let's see. And then you talked about the bicentennial of the church, which is coming up in 2030. That is going to be huge. Think about what happened in 2020. That was the bicentennial of the first vision. And we had that special general conference. Hosanna shout, new church symbol, new proclamation. It was huge. And it happened in a very unusual year. I would dare say that 2020 played out the way that it did with the pandemic and then social strife in the company and division. And it was just a crazy year. I would venture to say that that probably happened because it was the bicentennial of the first vision. And it was probably kind of like, it's like the 2-minute warning in a football game. It's like when you set a reminder for yourself to remind you the day before an event so that you don't forget. Could be wrong, but I think that's probably the case. And then he points to 2034, where the Winter Olympics are coming back to Salt Lake City, which kind of surprises me. I also want to point out that this was announced on Pioneer Day. I think it was last. Yeah, of course it was last year. This is the October 2024 General Conference. On Pioneer Day 2024, that was the day that they announced that the Olympics were coming back to Salt Lake. And on that same day, there was a fire there was a wildfire behind Ensign Peak. Ensign Peak is symbolic of Salt Lake City. It's symbolic of church headquarters. It's called Ensign Peak because they literally fly a flag up there, by the way. But when they first called it Ensign Peak, they actually put a flag up there to be symbolic of, the gathering of scattered Israel in an ensign to the nations. So fire behind Ensign Peak. It was announced on Pioneer Day. The last time that the Olympics were in Salt Lake in 2002, President Hinckley said that it fulfilled a prophecy of Brigham Young, that Salt Lake would be the highway of ambassadors and kings and emperors, because there were literal ambassadors and dignitaries. I don't know of any emperors, but or kings. I don't know. Maybe there was royalty that came, for all I know. But he said that it fulfilled Brigham Young's prophecy. And so, this would probably be an even greater fulfillment of that. So, yeah, I don't know. Seeing this in Congress, that kind of blows my mind. It blows my mind. We're in such an exciting time right now. I can't wait to see what the next 10 years hold, or I guess at this point, 9 years. I do not think that, the second coming is going to happen after that. I think it could happen anytime. And when I say anytime, I mean any or all of the appearances. I'm flexible, and whatever happens. So, okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.